Welcome back to another episode of Sound of the Lens podcast brought to you by Aligna Health. My name is Zarek Valentine, and I am here with Jamie Carroll-Rolfe.
Yes.
Rolfie, Rolf Dog.
A lot of different names go around. Yeah.
There you go. He is the current head coach of the U16 Academy team, as well as part of the staff for the 15s Academy with Amin.
Yep.
Welcome to the podcast. You told me beforehand this was your first ever podcast.
First podcast, a little nervous as well.
Really? Why are you nervous? Do I make you nervous?
No, I feel great right now. I get told I mumble.
Really?
I told him mumble a little bit. So
we have subtitles, so we should be good to go.
I appreciate that a lot. And no, I'm just but I'm looking forward to it a lot.
There you go. And so we have an accent. Let's start day one. Where are you from? Give the crowd a little bit of an insight into how you got to Minnesota. We're not going to do the elevator pitch. We want the full story, your footballing journey, because again, we will fast forward to some exciting games coming up very soon for the U15s that you're a part of. But let's take it way back. So obviously you have an accent. So you're not from Minnesota or St. Paul. Where are you from?
So it's interesting. Whenever people hear me talk, they sometimes ask, "Are you from Australia? Are you from where are you from?" I'm from a place called Reading in England.
Yes.
I try and tell people it's close to Oxford. It's about an hour away from London. My footballing journey, I always wanted to be a pro, but some people say I had a bad knee injury. I couldn't make it. I just wasn't good enough. And when you get to an age, you start to realize that. You start to think, well, what do I want to do? I still love football. How do I keep involved?
Yeah.
I started by refereeing a little bit. I actually enjoyed that quite a lot. People like enjoy getting shouted at. It's like, yeah, it's like, so that was exciting. And then I got to a stage when I went to university in Portsmouth.
Okay.
And the Portsmouth Football Club's the local, they're in the championship now. And they put out an internship and said, okay, we're looking for someone to help, assist with the U18 team. I applied for it, got it, and then spent a good few years there, but wanted to really, I enjoyed being an assistant. You kind of learn what the academy system's about in England. They were category 3 at the time, and it was kind of like, so you're really hands-on. You get to be in line with what their like kind of second team vibe is, and then you get to be doing the kit, getting the cones out, doing the travel. So you get a good foundation of what that is. And then, but I eventually was like, I need to start being a head coach and really have an impact on the training session, or what I'll try and like broaden my coaching experience. A guy at Portsmouth put me in contact with there's a company in America that used to bring coaches out to help coach American teams. I got told I was coming to Minnesota.
There you go.
Yeah, at that time I was really happy to go wherever. And then initially it was like, New Jersey, New York, but then ended up in Minnesota, in Blaine. I worked for a local club. I had four teams, 2 girl teams, 2 boy teams. So it was really hands-on, really a lot of work, but really great experience. And then I met my wife during that time, and I was like, okay, I'm going to come back and live in America. When I came back to America at the end of 21, the executive director at the club I worked at here now became the academy director here, Noel Quinn.
Oh, yeah.
So Noel, and so then Noel was like, okay, can you come in and help for a bit? Just, and I was doing similar things to what I did initially at Portsmouth, where I was helping at training, helping wash the kit, helping with like the day-to-day management, and just we were trying to get hands on the ground and try and make it supporting the staff at the time. So that then became an assistant coach. That then flew into, I took over the team a little bit last year, but then was dipped in and out, back to being assistant. Then at the start of this year, I became the head coach of 16s.
Awesome. That's great. Listen, that's a fantastic journey. Obviously going across the pond, as certain people would say, and ended up here in Minnesota. I know we're super happy to have you here. I got to work with you now for at least off and on for almost 2 years now, which has been a lot of fun. So let's take it back to Portsmouth. Long tenured club in England, a lot of history. When you first became part of that 18s group that you're saying, what were some of the things you learned or some of the people who impacted you really early into your coaching journey that have kind of shaped you at that point in your life to the coach you are now?
Yeah, it was an interesting one because I was just just in university. So I wasn't there wasn't too big of an age gap between me and the players. So it's hard to sometimes find that line between, well, I'm part of the staff, but I'm also like only a couple of years older than you. So I was able to connect really well with the like older coaching staff there that were able to this is what their kind of the vibe of the group is, because I was that go-between. When I got there, a guy called Mikey Harris was the U18 head coach. He's worked for England FA, Brighton, Southampton. He kind of introduced me to the biggest differences between maybe your like local club and how you're coming into the academy system. And also how, sometimes you can look at players and we can sometimes put them in a little bit like silos, like they are just footballers, right? Which isn't the case at all. And Mikey started me on that journey of like being the holistic approach to how we coach people. That's been continued through, you spoke to Justin recently, just being a head of methodology. Justin's a big believer in that. How you approach the person, not just the guy kicking the ball. So Mikey was a big part of that and brought me into that. So he was the biggest influence on me in Portsmouth. And then since then there's been, little pieces. And I think with any journey you have, whether it's a player, for example, or I was listening to when you retired and you were speaking about the video you did, and you're speaking about how you've got like your siblings would text you after games and you'd have that support around you. I think it's always, wherever you get somewhere, you always have like, you don't, it's hard to pinpoint one or two exact people.
Of course.
It's such a big environment. Day to day you're being shaped, right? But I'd say at Portsmouth, it was definitely Mikey.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you speak about this holistic approach. At a younger age, I find your path interesting because I feel in a very similar place where I'm around people that are my age, if I'm not a little bit older than them, and I just recently had played for them, so that really resonates with me. When you talk about the holistic approach, though, you're talking the person. Are you talking their habits off the pitch? Are you talking the player? How they deal with emotions, what kind of, again, could you hone into that a little bit more? I'm curious how deep you got into that, just being somewhat fresh into your coaching journey transition.
Yeah, I'd say from the point of, I look at two ways of looking at development on the field, where we try and organize the sessions to bring out game-like scenarios, for example, that are going to improve the players. And you can really talk about that as an holistic piece, not trying to break down the game too much and make it not feel like the game. But then you can also step away from the field and how we're going to develop players off the field. Well, we have a great stuff. And sometimes it's like the silent support stuff, right? You don't even know when, for example, a guy like Darius, big groups of people are part of where he got to, most importantly himself and his family. But for example, we have Anne here, who's our head of player welfare. Now, the work she does off the field to make support guys like Darius.
Shout out Anne.
Yeah, big shout out Anne. From, people like Julie, who's in the catering, the day-to-day piece, how we're looking after the players, the mental piece, and making sure they get right in school. We had a piece the other day with Bell Bank that was how the guys in the academy can manage finance moving forward. So whether at the end of the journey here, well, we hope it's pros, but it's a small percentage out of a big group that make the pro game, whether they go to college, whether they do X, Y, and Z, whether they go to Europe, whatever they do, that you're not just helping them be better footballers, you're helping them be better people. Because at the end of the day, I think that has a bigger impact. And I think as we, try and build these guys up for success, you're going to need to try and tick as many boxes as you can.
And snaps, I appreciate that, because I think there's a statistic that 1% of college athletes go to professionals.
Yeah.
So the numbers are very low. So it's awesome to see you guys approaching it less as a numbers game in terms of let's just try to get the best pros. Like let's just try to create good people. And if they happen to also be good footballers as well, that's also really nice. And I saw that firsthand. One of the first things I used, when I started my coaching journey, I worked with Justin when he was with the 17s for a bit. And then I was with you and Tom, who's not here anymore, with the 15s for a while. And then that was when you transitioned into being the head coach a bit once Tom had moved back to North Carolina. And do you think your age has allowed you to connect with the group that you're with on a deeper, more intense level because you're younger and not someone who's 55 and disconnected from some of the things that they might be going through in their normal day-to-day life?
Yeah, it's a good question. I try and, when you're younger, you're like, old people trying to connect with young people. And you're like, just take a minute, mate, and step away from it. You're not in this game, right? But I feel like it also helped me being the assistant last year that I could create different types of relationships with the group. I have it different with the 15s. I worked with some of them last year as they touched the current 16 group, but my relationship is maybe slightly different because they maybe see me more as the coach rather than the 16s kind of got to know me last year. I think it does help. I try and joke around the group, and I feel like there's an maybe an older way of thinking. I might be wrong here, but like, where this is the coach and the coach comes in and just like, it's kind of a bit scary. Like, they're here, listen to the voice. Whereas I think like if you're with them 5 days a week and we travel a lot, and you kind of have to really, really invest in getting to know them and trying to connect with them. Now they're young. I'm on social media, right? But I've Soundaloons, follow, make sure it's on socials.
Follow, subscribe. Yeah, we're getting, there you
go. But their social media is completely different to me. So like I hear little bits, I try and make jokes. I know I'm making the joke and try and sound like the old guy, but try and just connect with them on a level that, puts them at ease, especially before the start of a session.
Yeah, of course.
They might be coming from school that, they've got things going on in their life, and trying to make the time they have with us an enjoyable one. And if I can connect on a little bit of a level, because my age is closer, even though I was looking the other day and I'm like double the age now of some of them. I just hit 30 and I feel like my life's like, I feel like I'm really old now.
Oh, so then what does that mean for me?
Yeah, I know. But no, I try, and it's a fine balance between that and then being the guy that's trying to be like locking into the session.
If you're looking to hone your skills on the pitch, Minnesota United has your back. Our youth clinics and development camps range from goalkeeper training to academy tryout preparation to good old-fashioned summer soccer camps. We've got something for athletes of all ages and skill levels. Check out our camp offerings at MNUFC.com. And that's part of the job that you've had. Obviously, you're with the 15s. We spoke about that. You're with the 16s. And when I spoke to Amin about this, is you're dealing with young men and boys at a really interesting part in their life where their body's changing. And, I was with you guys in the off season with the 15s, and then I went to go play with the first team. And then I would check back in and, I think about Griff, and I think about Lazar, and a few of these guys that went from being, grew 4 inches, grew 5 inches. They're going through puberty and they're changing a lot, and their bodies are changing, their emotions are changing. Do you feel at times you play a little bit of this pseudo big brother role, even though you are a coach and there's an authority factor of that? You're dealing with a lot of changes that a first team coach, or even if you're a younger, like U10, like you're dealing with a very intricate part of a boy's life that we went through this transition. So do you feel like part of your job is also just to help navigate all the craziness about homecoming, prom, and everything, girls and life and all that?
I feel like it has to be a part of our job because, again, that holistic approach. If I just looked at the football in front of me all the time, you wouldn't be helping them in the long run. So these guys, they're growing, and sometimes they might be growing a few inches in a really rapid period of time, and they can't move the way they thought they could. They can't quite understand that, but I can as the coach. So if I can try and relate to them in that way and be like, look, this is a journey that a lot of people go on. And sometimes it relates, I'm not, confidence dips with that piece. So you have to try and help them zoom out.
Yep.
But it's really tough because, you know, especially when you're young, you're like living in the moment and you're so like emotionally invested in, I want to be a pro, I want to go and train on the first. Yeah, I know you do, but right now your body's not letting you do that.
Yeah.
Or there's like guys where you can look at our 15s group or any 15s group in the country, really, where you got guys that are like, have gone through it nearly, puberty.
Yeah.
And guys that haven't even touched it.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to get them in the same session, you're trying to get them to develop within, you know, that's why it's really good. We have we have a good relationship where we can be like, okay, well, who needs a little bit more?
Yeah. So then how do you balance that? Go right into it. How do you guys balance that? Are there anything within the session that you might change, or tactics, or just maybe someone's growing rapidly so their position might change, right? If they're an outside back, oh, this guy might be a decent winger because he's a little bit faster now and we can take advantage. How do you guys balance that on the fly, you know, body physiological change?
There's a tough balance because you don't want to like sell them short of what's to come, because say, for example, there's a guy who's a little bit smaller and you don't want to give them too much of a gap because eventually they're going to catch up and they're going to need a physical piece. Yeah. And it's actually interesting with the guys that are a little bit smaller right now within the session, they're learning how to play against bigger, quicker guys. So they're learning how to play on maybe a 1-touch, 2-touch, you know, see the game before it happens, because when it gets to their feet, they haven't got a lot of time. What we try and do as coaches at times is, how is player X going to play against player Y today? Okay, well, this player X is 6 foot, player Y is just buried 5. But tomorrow, can we give them a different challenge? Mm-hmm. So each day, some days they get challenges where they're the same, for example, in this example, height as the guy. Next day it's against someone who's bigger, faster, stronger. So they're constantly learning how to be adaptable, and whoever they come up against on the weekend. I think that's a really big important part. I also feel like, and we worked with our like strength and conditioning coaches, and we can track how quickly they're growing. Or player X is shot up in the last month. We need to be a bit more careful in training. Maybe they take a day or two out of training. Mm-hmm. Maybe they do some individual work on the side. Maybe they just do gym work. So we try and balance and manage their body so they don't turn into an injury. And then you've also got the guys that are like maybe the early developed guys. Okay, well, how do we challenge them if they're not getting a certain challenge within the group? Maybe they come and train with me in the 16s. Because we've had 12 guys within the 15s group this year that have played games at 16 level. Mm-hmm. We have even more that have trained. So we try and do a balance in that. And that's, again, a really good idea of me. And I mean, working together is, I get to see the players all day. Like at the 15s, I get to see them every day, and I get to see the 16s. So I can see where the gaps are. I can see which guys can come up. And it's really like a fluid piece that is only going to help them moving forward.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's interesting because the general public doesn't see the amount of time that you guys put in, right? I walked in, on you guys' session building plan, which I appreciate you taking the time to come join the podcast, but you guys are in there grinding, trying to figure out, you know, certain things that I heard you talking about, certain players, putting this guy there because of form, whether it's, you know, the challenge, whatever it might be. So that's just part of it that the regular consumer doesn't necessarily see when they watch you guys play. And you said how many guys have played for your 16s group that are at 15s?
So 12 guys have got minutes, and then even I'd say maybe close to 20 have been involved in a training session, including those 12.
So then that translates into playing at a higher level, playing with guys bigger, stronger, faster, having to develop. And I look back at my own life, having played up. I always viewed I used to train with my brother who was 4 years older than me. And then I was substantially smaller. So I had to be quick. I had to be fast with the ball, and I had to be clean, right? Because that was the only way you could complete your passes. And then even going up, it was, you know, forward in my life, I always played up 1 year, sometimes 2, because I was able to now develop the tactical side of it and the technical side of it before my body eventually, you know, fast forwarded to where I was bigger. So you have this large group of players that have played with your team at the 16s. Now fast forwarding to this weekend. Do you think, you know, give the fans a little bit of insight into exactly what's going to be going on? Because we got some big games in the 15s age group, but do you think that those players having played with you and you being so hands-on on both groups is going to potentially and hopefully give you guys an advantage going into what is a really big weekend for yourself, for Amin, 15s, and the club?
Yeah. So basically, we're heading into the MLS Next playoffs coming this weekend. We go to Nashville. Basically, it's the accumulation of, you have to like kind of earn there through qualification. You get there. It's meant for the best teams within the country to end up in like a winner takes all knockout scenario. Every team's part of that journey, whether the 16s and 18s didn't get there this year. The 15s, it's the first time a 15s age group is from our club has got to,
golf club.
Yeah, golf club.
There you go.
So they can expect, we know for sure our first game is against Barca Residency Academy, a really, really strong program. And then you can either play, it's either going to be SKC or Atlanta. So the way that works, and I feel that with us, me and Amin working together, is it helps because, for example, there's a player called Max Harwood. He plays all year with the 16s, trains all year with the 16s, now coming down to the 15s group. Because he knows me and because he knows Amin and he sees us every day, it makes the transition a little bit easier. The guys that have come up, if, you know, as you can have a lot of bodies around sessions before or games before and a lot of voices, but if you have voices that you're used to, it makes those moments in games at halftime a little bit easier. And I feel like if I can speak to player X or player Y, while Amin addresses a wider section of the group, we'll benefit from that.
Yeah.
We also, it's a good challenge for those guys because people assume that when you go down an age group, you should just dominate completely, but it's a different game. You know, speed might be a little bit different. So it's a good challenge for the guys that have had good minutes at 16. How can they impact this 15s group and how can they be leaders within this 15s group? So it'll be, and now we've got them in right now when they're all training together. You know, Max, for example, would train with the 16s before, now he's come back down. It's good. We're excited. We don't try and look past the first game because we've got to try and win that one ahead of us. But, you know, we have a group, a talented group, a really hard-working group, a group that represents the badge really well. And it's exciting to see where we go.
Yeah. So do you think it's interesting because the dynamic that you and Amin have with the 16s and the 15s is you know the 15s group extremely well because you've been there, right? And so that comfort level and that essentially it's very collaborative, which is why you think, do you think that's added to the success of the group as a whole?
Yeah, I'd say yes to a degree.
There you go. Pat yourself on the back. There you go. Come on.
Cautious to do that. I feel like the more coaches you can have on hand is always going to be better. And the partnership me and Amin have where we're fluid between both teams is going to help them be fluid in the transition. But I think majority of the credit goes down to, I'd say for every group I've been a part of or seen this year, from day one of pre-season, it's been locked in. And this 15s group is no different to that. It's an interesting one for 15s because they're like the teething process of an academy. Yeah. Because they come in, they're like, what is this all about? This is all new, flash, you know, playing against really tough opposition. So to hit the ground running like they did at the start of the year and continue it, and you know, we hope it only goes one way, but it's also like knockout football. So
of course,
who knows what's going to happen?
Well, that's exciting. I mean, you've detailed the process of it. You've detailed some of the leaders that might be able to go down and try to hopefully be leaders within that group and to take the group by the scruff of the neck. And that's super exciting to kind of see. So for the MNUFC Loon fan base, how can we follow? How can we watch? Because this is a big moment. Again, as you said, it's the first time 15s have been involved. Is there a way in which we could, you know, put a link or description in terms of how we can just follow you guys in this journey? Yeah, so there'll be a couple of ways. Some games get broadcasted. We've not been given a game yet, but if you get to knockout round, you get part of the broadcast team. We have our socials on X and on Instagram and Facebook. You can follow us on there, you get updates. And then there's the MLS Next website, which will give results per day. Awesome. Well, listen, I know I'll be following. It's been great to see your journey and see you evolve as a coach and grow into your personality. I watched you lead a film session, as I said, and to kind of see you in front of the group, kind of manning everything, giving praise, giving constructive feedback, and kind of just see your growth has been awesome for me. I've taken some of the relationship-based approach that you have with your group and tried to implement that into some of my day-to-day because you connect with your players on a very different level than I've seen some other coaches. So I'm getting a lot of joy in getting to know you and your journey. So I appreciate you taking the time to talk to the viewers here and to give us a little bit of insight into the team and into what a big weekend it'll be for the MNUFC Academy. Thanks for having me on, Zarek. Of course. Well, listen, this has been another fantastic episode of the Sound of the Loons podcast brought to you by Line of Health. Hopefully you can come back at some point, hopefully after a few wins and maybe a trophy. We'll see. We'll take a game by game. We'll put a trophy here. There you go. We'll take a game by game, though. That's another episode. Thank you so much for coming on.